Hey guys, the purpose of this video is just to highlight some of the bigger changes that matter the most for students in the new publication of the APA 7th edition Style Manual. This manual was published in October of 2019. So the page that we're looking at right here on our screen is the old cover page for the APA paper. We had the running head with the title. I think that this was the most pesky, frustrating thing about APA format for students to kind of figure out how to have the running head on one page and then not the running head on the other pages. And then I think if for instructors, there wasn't a class or any information on like what class a student was in, and so APA has made some changes, some really big changes to the cover page, and I think that's one of the most notable areas of the 7th edition changes. So let's take a look at what the 7th edition cover page looks like. So here it is. You'll notice that we no longer have the phrase running head, we no longer have the title up here in the right hand corner, left hand corner. All we have is the page number in the right hand corner. And if you insert the page number properly by going to insert page number and not just typing in the number 1, then your page numbers will advance as you add content to your paper. The other thing that APA has changed is the format of the kind of centered lines on the cover page document. So notice that the title is here and it's bold. I'm assuming that if you had a subtitle for your paper, you would follow that with a colon, and then down on a new line you would provide the subtitle. I didn't confirm that before recording this video though, but that's what you did before in APA, so I'm guessing that's the same here as well. I do note that there's some extra space between the title and the rest of the information provided on the cover page, so I would make sure that you've got at least one extra space there. I think that's probably all you need. Then you go down and now you're getting out of the bold style. You have your first and last name. If there are other authors, you would list all of the authors here. Then you have the department that you're in, and so if you're just writing for, I would just pick whatever class that you're writing for. So, if it's English class and you're writing for Mitchell Community College, then just make sure you've got a comma in between those two things, and that's what we're looking for here. The class abbreviation and the number essentially refers to kind of like what you would normally see, I think, in MLA format. For the purposes of our class, this would be ENG 112 hyphen, what are we, 4D, I think. And then the class name, whatever your class name is, goes there. So that's what this line should look like. And then your instructor, I didn't look up to see if APA wants, like a formal title and then a last name, a first and a last name. I am perfectly fine with just a last name. And then you add the date. I did look up to see what the style of the date should be in APA format, because if you're one of my students, then you know that I'm super, super picky about this. APA format says whatever is most common in your country. And so in the US, the most common and formal date to write would be something like April 20th, 2020. And I think that it would also be perfectly fine if you wanted to write April 2020, even if you were in the US. I would just kind of limit yourself to one of those two more formal styles. I think that, the dates with the slash marks or hyphens are still a bit too informal for the cover page of a paper. However, that's just purely my opinion and speculation. Okay, so that's the big difference between the old APA style and the new 7th edition APA. I think that this is actually much more student friendly. I think it's easier to format. I'm guessing that sometimes the gurus who live in the big towers of APA probably realize that there's some things they required before that are just not as necessary. Maybe that's why they make the changes. I also think they make these changes to keep you buying publication materials. So some other things I want to go through are some items found on the APA highlights list of changes. Another really big noticeable change between the 6th and the 7th APA edition is that the phrase retrieved from before a URL is not present anymore in the 7th edition. And so you can look at the example here. What I'm kind of circling over on my left hand side is the phrase retrieved from. This is the 6th edition. We used to do this. Now the new 7th edition does not have the retrieved from phrase. I'm guessing maybe APA said, well, that would allow the citation to be shorter. And also, I think when most people see a URL, they understand that, hey, that's where you got the information from. So, I don't know, pure speculation again, but I'm wondering if maybe that's why they made this change. So, no longer in the 7th edition do you need to have the phrase retrieved from. When you had DOIs before in the 6th edition, you did not need to have sort of like the beginning of a URL, http:// whatever you want to call that. However, this is preferred now in APA 7th edition. That's a small change. It's probably something that many of you are already doing. Another change that I think is kind of more notable is that the publisher location, or like the city of publication, has been removed from the reference. And this is, I think, most likely going to be a change you'll notice if you're familiar with citing a lot of textbooks or any book, honestly, because book citations required the city and I believe the state, and that's gone now. It's interesting because MLA made this change when they moved from the 7th to the 8th edition in 2016, and now APA format is making the same change. And I'm wondering if it's because there's just probably a lot of content that's being published online, and then also maybe publishing houses just have multiple cities where they operate from, and so location maybe just doesn't matter anymore. I don't know. Again, pure speculation. Another thing that I think is noticeable and might happen, especially if you're looking at scholarly articles where a lot of different authors have come together, is how many names are listed. So in the APA 6th edition or the older edition, the people who designed that said if you have 7 authors, then you would list them all out, but if you have more than 7, you would list the 7th author, skip some, and then list the last author. Now they're saying that that's still the true format, but you list 20 authors instead of just 7. Some other changes, and y'all, I'm just kind of scrolling through our little notes here, is that the in-text citation for a source with 3 or more authors from the very first citation and moving forward will use the phrase et al., which is Latin for and others. So before APA said in your first citation you need to list out all the authors, and then moving forward you can use the phrase et al. However, APA is saying, you know what, let's just shorten that, use et al. Every time, no big deal. And that's if you have 3 or more authors in the in-text citation. Obviously, from our previous note, that's not the case for your references page. Some other changes, APA format prior did not endorse the singular pronoun they, however they do now. APA says it's perfectly fine to refer to one person as they in the case of that's their pronoun choice, or in the case of maybe you're not sure who the author is and you want to say they even though you want to refer to just one person. And so that is perfectly fine. An example would be a researcher's career depends on how often they are cited. So let's see what else. There's guidance for formatting web pages. I would want to look more into that before I really talked about it with you all. So I think that if you're going to be using the 7th edition, just make sure you know what type of source you have and you format it based on the 7th edition rules in the APA manual style guide, or in what you've found like maybe on the Purdue OWL or something like that. And then of course there are more guidance on tweets, which I think is interesting, or like other social media, because there was guidance I think already on a lot of social media, but I don't think that people are really paying attention to it. Okay, I hope this helps. Email me if you have any questions. I hope you guys are doing well, and of course if you need anything, just let me know.